Jeffrey Dahmer's story is one of the most watched shows on Netflix right now. The entire world is collectively finding itself both fascinated and horrified by the crimes Jeffrey Dahmer committed during the 80s and 90s against the queer men of color whom he preyed on. While the show is not claimed to be a documentary, it is still retelling a historical event, oftentimes with laser-focused detail that eerily parallels real life. Understandably, viewers are frustrated with the lack of consistency. After all, if you're going to retell a story that actually happened, shouldn't you be sticking to the facts the entire time? In this video, we highlight 4 of the biggest inaccuracies within the show, which will likely change the way you feel about it. Number 1. Dahmer's apartment didn't smell like flesh. Annie Schwartz, a former Milwaukee crime reporter, in an interview with The Independent, says, "When people are watching Ryan Murphy's Netflix series and saying, 'Oh my God, this is terrible,' I want to tell them it didn't necessarily turn out that way." Schwartz was working as a crime reporter when she received a tip from a police source that a human head and body parts had been discovered inside an apartment. She arrived at the scene of Dahmer's apartment, and she says, "I was a crime reporter for 5 years, so I know what it smells like when you walk into a building with a dead or decomposing body." This was not that. This was a very chemical smell, she tells The Independent. Number 2. Glenda Cleveland didn't actually live in the Oxford apartments or ever meet Jeffrey. In the first 5 minutes of the first episode, you have Glenda Cleveland, played by Niecy Nash, knocking on his door. None of that ever happened, Schwartz says. "I had trouble with buy-in because I knew that was not accurate." The real Cleveland, who tried to alert officials to Dahmer's suspicious behavior, actually lived in a separate building. According to an obituary published by USA Today in 2011, it was actually Cleveland's daughter and niece who spotted 14-year-old Conrad Synthesophone fleeing from the building, bloodied and bruised, which she explained in an interview. While waiting for the police, Dahmer approached her, and when the officers arrived, they never asked for any details of what had occurred, instead focusing solely on Dahmer. While they were asking him questions, Cleveland's daughter went to get her, but when they returned, everyone was gone. We know that tragically, Conrad was murdered by Dahmer not long after this. Number 3. Jeffrey Dahmer didn't wear his glasses during trial. When Dahmer's trial began in September 1991, he appeared in court without his infamous glasses. As it turns out, he had a very intentional reason for doing this. He didn't want to look his victims' family members in the eye. In his own interview, Dahmer said, "I felt uncomfortable looking anyone in the face. I didn't want to see anyone's face clearly. It helped me disassociate myself from what was happening." Despite this, the show depicts Peter as wearing the glasses in every courtroom scene for the duration of the trial. Number 4. Lionel Dahmer did not teach Jeffrey how to dissect roadkill. The show spends a significant portion of time documenting the relationship between Jeffrey and his father, Lionel Dahmer. The show insinuates that Jeffrey's early fascination with dissecting roadkill came from Lionel, who actively encouraged the process and even went so far as showing his son what to do. As Lionel explains in his book, A Father's Story, he did teach his son about preserving animal bones, as Jeffrey had shown a keen interest in chemistry and biology, and Lionel had a PhD in chemistry. He did not, however, physically show him how to do anything or ever dissect roadkill with him. Number 5. Jeffrey's real neighbors were not overly suspicious of him. Pamela Bass was a neighbor who lived within the same building and had interactions with Dahmer. In a documentary, The Dahmer Files, she described him as kind of friendly but kind of introverted, and recalled the time where she saw him taking a bag of trash out, which in retrospect now makes her feel uneasy. She also revealed that she would occasionally have a beer at Dahmer's house and still didn't suspect anything, describing him as someone who would always share. The most Bass claims to have heard from Dahmer's apartment was music. "In my opinion, he appeared to be a geek," said another neighbor in a news interview at the time. "By that I mean he kept to himself and would just do weird things, but not to the degree that you would think." According to some reports, Dahmer's neighbors didn't complain that his apartment smelled of flesh. They only believed it to smell of urine, which, while unhygienic, didn't feel like cause for concern. Please subscribe for more videos like these. Thanks for watching.